Okay, recording started by you. Let everyone know. Okay, fine. I think we're on. Yeah, we are. Okay, that's all right. I can edit it anyway. Okay, that's all right. Let me just get rid of that. Okay, just try and make sure my phones are turned off. Right, there we are. Hello, Dr. Nick. How are you? How are you keeping?
Really well, thank you. The sun is shining and really busy, and getting prepared for Orlando for the Judy Morgan natural experience next week. So really excited about that. And then after that, I'm actually going from Orlando to Heathrow, staying there overnight, and then going to Sofia in Bulgaria to talk to the good people of Sofia about raw food as well. So really excited. I'm going to take some samples of boil and broth, bone broths to them, because I think they really enjoy those as part of their raw food journey, methinks.
Yeah, amazing, Nick. Well, actually, where you're heading to in Bulgaria, they stock our products.
Oh,
So
they
it's
do?
fantastic that you're going, because you'll be
Okay.
able to introduce it to all their new people that are coming in and listening to you talk. So that's fantastic. And I know that Dr. Judy, she's also got some of our samples over in America too. Yeah, so I think they're going to be handed out in the little goodie bags, which is always good. So yeah, please do look out for all of those. And thank you as always for supporting us. But also, Nick, just before we jump in, I wanted to ask you, how was Africa? Because you obviously headed off to Africa with the Raw Pet Medics. And how's that going? You know, because they're an emerging country, especially on the raw pet space. So
totally. They are hungry for great information about raw food. Yeah, the number of people who are feeding raw is not loads, but it's growing very quickly. They're having difficulty kind of keeping up with demand with the people that we spoke to. We went out. We were treated like royalty by Pawsome Raw with a P. So a big shout out to Rieta and to Xander, who run the show there, and Abri, who is the boss there. They are so keen and they're so dedicated. Even when they were showing us around, they would be making a little detour to go and drop some food with somebody as well. Seriously, they are that dedicated. Seriously. And we went to the shop a couple of times. They've got a really lovely shop in Cape Town, or in Gordons Bay, which is just south of Cape Town. So what we did very briefly is we had a couple of days in Johannesburg, and we did some really good stuff, met some fabulous people there, and then came down to Cape Town, and we did a day in Cape Town, and that went down really well. And in the interim, Brendan and Connor and Anna, who were the other lecturers, they went on safari. But I used the opportunity. I went to Stellenbosch University to the animal science department, because they're doing studies on regenerative agriculture, running cattle in vineyards, tiny little Dexter cattle in vineyards, to keep the grass down so they don't need to use herbicides, and to fertilize the soil at the same time. And so they're doing some studies on that, which is so exciting. And then I also met the amazing Angus McIntosh. So he's Farmer Angus. Look him up. He's brilliant. Or look him up on YouTube. He is a larger than life, wonderful, gentle, clever character who is Mr. Number One regenerative agriculture in the whole of South Africa. So I was lucky enough to see him on a couple of days, which was really good. So I'm absolutely, my cup runneth over, as they say. So I'm really pleased.
Yeah. Well done, and welcome back as well. It's really good to hear all of your adventures and what you're doing, particularly not just in the UK, but on a global scale as well. So
it is going global. It really
awesome.
is. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Very much so.
But today, Nick, I thought we'd jump on and talk about hydration, because we've been blessed so far with the weather this spring. It's been lovely. Actually, it was recorded the hottest day ever for this time of year yesterday in London. Yeah, it reached nearly 30 degrees for the 1st of May, which has never been recorded. So we are seeing temperature's starting to rise quickly, and we know that our pups, they suffer during the summer months, don't they? And
they do.
Hydration is obviously a big thing. So I thought that, it would be a really good idea for us to talk to our viewers today, or anyone that's listening, more about hydration, the importance of hydration. And I know through our broths, so I am going to tie this in with the broths, that there's minerals in the broth that help to support hydration for dogs, particularly the magnesium, potassium and sodium. So I just thought we'd get you on and throw this open to you so that you can share all of your amazing knowledge for everybody, so that just so people can be prepared, I think, because I think, Nick, it would probably be good to understand, what are the signs of a dehydrated dog, and cat, because obviously cats are highly suffer with dehydration. So can we start with that first?
What are the signs? The signs. So if you're feeding raw, you are less likely to see a dehydrated cat or dog. Okay, so that's the first thing to say, because if you're feeding kibble, it is dry, and I think it's madness to feed cats and dogs on dried food. Even if it was the best thing in the world, it is dry. Okay, and so that puts you a step closer to dehydration, because you then have to drink fluid in order to then hydrate that material in your body. Whether you're a dog or a cat. So that's the first thing to say. However, let's assume that most people are hopefully feeding raw or fresh food, where you've got really the food itself is very hydrated. It's very moist food. So if, however, I don't know, something happens and the dog becomes dehydrated, you will see they will be sluggish. If you feel their mucous membranes, they will be tacky. Or if you look at their eyes, usually if you go like this, there is a certain glisten, a certain shine. Okay, if you and I go into the mirror and go like this, there is a certain, you can just see the moisture there, and you won't see a lack of moisture on the cornea, the surface, but you might just think, ooh, those mucous membranes looking a little bit tacky. The other signs that you'd see more with dogs, because cats are a bit private, is that you'll see the dog, they'll be walking along, they might be a bit more dull than they were previously, and when they cock their leg or go to squat, I've got a couple of bitches, and you can just about see under them, because there's an inch or two. I was doing it absent-mindedly this morning, thinking, wow, that's really lovely looking urine. Okay, said nobody ever, unless they were a vet, I guess. It was really lovely, because it was even the boy, he tends to have more concentrated urine. He had the urine should look like just kind of slightly straw cut, very light, like I'm just trying to think. I usually use Sauvignon Blanc, wine as an example. It's very slightly. You don't want urine like a really deep oaky Chardonnay, which is kind of is a really deep color, or a Muscadet or something like that. I don't know a lot about these things,
you're comparing it with wine.
And what you really, really, really don't want is your urine. When I say you, I mean you, your dog, your cat, your children, whatever, anywhere near looking like tea of any description. You can have, some people like really weak tea, some people like really strong tea. If you've got pee like weak tea, you're in the wrong place. You're in the wrong hydration place. If you've got pee like strong tea, you need to see a doctor, essentially. Okay, because that is really pretty extreme. So first of all, you're thinking about wines from very pale to the most unpale wine, and then you get into tea territory, and you go from pale tea to so I would say that is a description that has probably never been used in the history of medicine, but actually I would say that should get the idea across better than any technicalities. People talking about specific gravity. Well, they don't. No, not everybody does. But I would say probably 80 or 90% of your audience do know a little bit about wine. And if they don't, then they've probably got an idea. Okay, but they do know about tea, they do know about, just regular tea. So I'd say that's the thing to do. If what you can do with cats and dogs is you can grab some. It's difficult in humans because we've got a funny shaped skull, but with cats and dogs, you can grab a little bit of skin just here, so it's just above the eye. Just so if you think of a dog or a cat between the eye and the nose, you've got either side of the skull, and here or here, what you do is you take a pinch without hurting anybody. You take a pinch and then you let it ping, you let it ping back, and it should ping back immediately, hopefully like mine is, okay, because I'm very conscious of my hydration these days. And it should ping back immediately. If there's any type of, so it should go from here dunk to there pretty
Nice.
immediately. If there's any sluggishness whatsoever, you're probably in, if it's a relatively quick but not quick, then you are maybe 1% dehydrated. If you remain with tented skin, you're
Yeah.
probably 3% dehydrated, and that's serious business. You need to do something really quick or get to the vets.
Yeah, that's so interesting, Nick. Thanks for sharing that, because I
Mm,
think some of the common signs of dehydration are often missed,
sure,
and
sure.
so if somebody finds, if somebody discovers that their dog, or feels that their dog is perhaps
Yeah,
dehydrated,
yeah,
what's the best way to help them become hydrated?
yeah,
Because obviously dogs, as we know, they can be very fussy with water, but
yeah,
water isn't enough for hydration either, is it, Nick? So I think it's really, this is why it's such an important chat today,
for sure.
because let's get into a little bit more of the detail.
Yeah.
How can we really help our dogs and cats in
Yeah.
that situation?
Okay, so the first thing to say, water is the ideal medium for hydration in a healthy animal. Yeah, because they're taking on all their minerals and proteins and amino acids from food, and they just need a ready, 24/7 supply of clean water. We could talk about quality of water. That's maybe for another show.
Sure.
And microplastics and all that sort of stuff. But all if you're healthy, all you need is water. Yeah, water for the dog, water for the cat, water for humans. Yeah, pretty much everything else is not good for you. Coffee not so good, tea not so good. If you're having herbal teas, they're much better. In fact, they're pretty good. South Africa, I discovered Rooibos red bush tea,
Oh, I
which
drink
is
that all the time.
unbelievable. I love it. I
Yeah,
absolutely
love
love
that
it. So
too.
that's what I'm drinking these days.
Yeah.
But to come back to the question, um, I think the thing to remember is that if you put an enormous bowl of bone broth, and bone broth for anybody who's even slightly dehydrated is really ideal. If you're very dehydrated, you're probably veterinary surgery material. Okay,
Mm.
that's really important to say. If in doubt, go to the vet, get them checked. If they say no, they're not too, and they send you home, great, you've dodged a bullet. But um, if you think, gosh, I need to get some fluid into this dog, you can either the best way to do it is when the dog or the cat will take it themselves, okay, which is where the bone broth scores a lot of points because it's very attractive. And this is why it's a good idea to use bone broth periodically, even if the dog is not, or cat is not, dehydrated, because then they're used to it and then they look forward to it. So when they're feeling a bit rough because they're dehydrated, they go, oh, I quite like bone broth. I'll have some of that. And the important thing that I want to really emphasize is that if you give loads of bone broth all in one go, they will probably bleh, especially
Yeah.
dogs, yeah, especially Labrador, yeah, because they will drink 5 liters of the stuff in a wanna and then deposit it on the kitchen floor,
Yeah.
guaranteed. Okay, so the thing to do is just take a small bowl, give them that, they will take that in, and then maybe half an hour later another smallish bowl, I don't know, about that much. Yeah, that's just that had my kefir in this morning. There you go, Mr. Healthy. um so yeah, and it depends on the size of the dog, but all I'm saying is don't give them an entire belly full, or even a cat an entire belly full all in one go, because they may vomit it. There you go.
So yeah, so give it to them slowly.
Little and often.
I like that. I like that. I think that's wise, you know, because that's what we would do for ourselves, right? We probably wouldn't scull 5 litres of water if we were. We might feel like we want to, but
you will feel like you want to, yeah. But
yeah,
you'll
it's gonna happen our first.
and the absorption of it will be better if you go little and often. Maybe you give the same amount every 10 minutes, but you don't give it all in one go. That's the important thing. Okay.
So Nick, talk to us. What is dehydration? So what is it that's actually happening in, because you know dehydration happens through a process of, you know, obviously not having enough water, but also you know, dogs, they go out for walks, you know, some people do walk their dogs in the heat of the day, you know, some people they might not have any choice, you know, often a lot of people do get encouraged to and do stick to the rules of walking their dogs before the sun's risen or later in the day. But you know, sometimes people don't have a choice, they have to take their dogs out in the heat. And we know that dogs sweat because that's how they regulate their body temperature. So is sweating a contributing factor to dehydrating?
Not as much as with humans. Humans sweat all over their body. Dogs sweat on their feet. But what dogs do and cats do as well is they will pant. Yeah, if you see a cat panting, they are very hot. Okay, if you see a dog panting, it's just kind of part of their normal regulation. And they will lose a lot of moisture through that. Okay, so I mean, dehydration is basically that more fluid is leaving the body than is going into the body. You've got in a healthy body, you've got enough fluid to cope with a certain degree of loss. Yeah, because if you know, back in the old days when we were in caves, you'd go out and the men would go out and hunt, for example, and the women would go out and forage, and they may not have any water. So your body needs to be able to exist for several hours without having to drink, because otherwise we'd be having to, you know, we'd be living right next to a river and having to drink every 5 minutes. Okay, so your body has a resiliency with hydration, but when you get to the end of that reservoir, then you get that's where you get into dehydration territory. And I'm just writing a blog about this at the moment, and so I've done some research on what is the physiological impact of dehydration. You know, for us, we just think, oh, it's a bit unpleasant. Then you rehydrate and off you go. Yeah, bone broth or whatever it might be. But absolutely amazing that there's a paper here from 2021 in Science Direct, which says dehydration in older people, a systematic review of the effect of dehydration on health outcomes, healthcare costs, and cognitive performance. And what they find is that dehydration was linked to frailty, to slow heartbeat, to mild strokes, TIAs, transient ischemic attacks, all mouth issues, delayed recovery from surgery. Can you believe it? Wow. You know, all of that stuff is recognized in people, and I don't think we probably really recognize that in our animals, but we should, and that's why we're having this conversation. Is to bring, unless you think it, you won't recognize it. Okay, so this is what we need to recognize. There's another paper here from 2025, and it says that hospital admissions in the United States of older adults due to dehydration is 17 to 28%.
Wow,
so yeah. I kid you not. Almost 1/3 of everybody who goes to the A&E, what do they call it, ER, in the States, is dehydrated. Just dehydration. So you know, those guys need to really get real with bone broth. With water and you know, bone broth. You know.
Because I think it's important to mention that when you lose water from your body, so either through sweating, I mean, obviously we're talking humans here, but I would assume, you know, that there are minerals that we're releasing, that, you know, it's not just a case of releasing water, but sodium's a big one, right? Because sodium does make such a big part of our the functionality of our body, you know. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, the three main ones for, you know, like is sodium, magnesium, and potassium. And I'm pretty sure that in those isotonic drinks, you know, that they recommend, you know, we're talking humans here, but if you're dehydrated, you know, I remember when our little boy Jack was younger, he had a vomiting episode. He was really sick, and he ended up in hospital because of dehydration. And you know, so, and I just at the time, you know, being a new mum, thought that it was about, you know, just hydrating him back with water, but you know, they were very clear, no, it's not just water. You need to have those minerals going back into the body to help it balance, to get back to that homeostasis.
Yeah, totally right. And using kind of really sugary sports drinks is not a great idea, because they've got too much sugar in them, basically. So I mean, if you have to use those kind of things, find the low sugar products if at all possible. But ideally, bone broth is really amazing because there's no sugar in it, and yet it has all of these naturally balanced minerals.
Sorry, Nick, I've just got an ice cream truck that's pulled up front.
What? You mean an ice cream truck? As in...
I don't know if you heard it. Sorry, viewers. I do cut in there.
Do you hear about those? I've heard of kind of confessions, mothers' confessions, and one mother, because the ice cream truck came every day throughout the summer, she said, when the siren, what do you call it? The
I don't know.
The doodah, when it goes da 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 da, it means they've run out of ice cream. How cruel is that?
That's a great way to tell the kids.
Yeah, you know, so because otherwise the kids want ice cream every single day. But there you go. That's another. Anyway, but it's really interesting. If we look at immunity and hydration, generally speaking, if you get dehydrated, it will affect your immune system. I've got a 2020 paper here in Nutri Advanced, and it says dehydration led to immunosuppression, including reduced neutrophil function. A 2012 study also showed modest dehydration reduced salivary antimicrobial proteins, and which could potentially compromise defenses. And so these things are well recognized. However, and this is going slightly off tangent, but it's very, very interesting. There's a 2013 paper here which shows that Gila monsters, which are a desert reptile, when they get dehydrated, they actually become it enhances their immune response.
Wow.
Isn't it cool? Isn't that absolutely cool?
Amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, right. That's fascinating, isn't it? I suppose animals are in different parts of the world, so they're going to have
so you've got to adapt. Exactly.
Yeah, of course.
And here's one that humans, us vain creatures that we are, dehydration, even small amount of dehydration, if you're not drinking water on a daily basis, or bone broth, ideally, on a daily basis, it can promote aging. Okay, check this. This was this review. So this 2014 review from Science Direct. This review defined water loss, dehydration, and its prevalence in older adults, linking it to reduced physiological function and vigorous aging. Now, if that doesn't get you thinking about hydration and bone broth, I do not know what will. There's another study, which was a 25-year study looking at dehydration resulting in high sodium levels in your blood, associated with accelerated aging, increase of heart failure, dementia, and a 21% increase in premature mortality.
Wow, that's incredible, isn't it?
So
It just goes to show. I mean, you know, our bodies are made up of, you know, I believe it's around 80% fluid. So, you know,
Yeah, about 70%, I would say. Yes,
yeah,
yes. But 70% water. We are 70%
yeah,
water.
that's
And dogs
amazing.
and cats are about the same.
Wow. Dr. Nick, I'm so sorry, but we are going to have to wrap it up because we could literally
I
talk about this stuff for such a long time, right?
we could talk about this all day long. It's really fascinating, and you speak to the woman in the street, and she'll say, "Oh yeah, hydration, just drink enough, and you'll be fine." But actually, there's so much more interesting than that. There are so many elements to hydration, but the bottom line is keep hydrated, keep your dog, keep your cats hydrated. Raw food is really important there, and bone broth is part of that regime. And I think
Yeah, I love
it's
that.
fun and it's really good, really
Love
good.
that. It's really, really good. Really, really good. Maybe we should do like a part 2 of this a bit later on, a bit closer to the summer or something, and get
Sure,
drilling into some of that stuff again, because I do think
sure.
it's an important topic for us to keep talking about, especially, you know, hopefully we're going to have a decent summer in the UK. We can live in
Well,
hope.
that would be nice, sure. But the answer is really easy: is keep hydrated, and bone broth is kind of the easiest way to do that on a daily basis. You know,
Yeah.
just have bone
Cup of
broth
broth.
for with your lunchtime meal, maybe in the evening to make up for any losses during the day.
Yeah.
Bob's your uncle. It's so simple, you know,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
we
yeah.
can talk about it for a long time, I'm sure.
We will, and I'll probably just want to add on as well, because I know some people do kibble feed, but that, you
Yeah,
know, broth is great to
yeah,
help, you know, because you
yeah,
can pour it all over the kibble and
yeah.
help to yeah, to just to put more moisture into the dry feed. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, you know, we want to encourage as many people to switch to raw, but there are
It's
some.
even more important with kibble feeding. Yeah. So if
Yeah.
you are kibble feeding, you need to be, you know, 2, 3 times more switched on with your hydration measures than you would with a raw fed dog. That's for sure.
Yeah, cool. Okay, all right. Well, thanks again, Nick. It's always a
Amazing.
pleasure catching up.
Great.
And
Rachel, good.
yeah, we'll catch up next time. I don't know what we're going to
Fabulous.
talk about next time. We'll have to start making a bit of a plan so that we can announce
Yeah.
pre video what we're going to be doing next time. But yeah, I'm sure it'll be good, whatever
Lots
it
to
is.
talk about. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Absolutely. It's great to see you. Keep up the good work and look forward to seeing everybody next time.
All right. Cheers. Thanks, Nick. Bye for now. Bye. All right. Let me just stop. There we go.